It was during November that I decided to take a trip down to the capital for a short break. The day started with a train ride from Cambridge to King's Cross Station. For anyone who has travelled with British Rail before, it won't surprise you to know that the train was late. Nevertheless, I arrived in London in time to meet up with my family for what would be the start of a great weekend. Once we were all together, we called an Uber and made our way through the usual drag of London traffic towards the hotel in Clapham. After checking in, it was then back towards the centre to our first planned activity, the London Bridge experience. This was a unique experience which consisted of two parts. For the first 15 minutes, we were part of an interactive experience, retelling the history of the bridge. This included preparing for an attack on the bridge as Anglo-Saxons, discovering the interesting methods of torture used through the 14th century, trying to avoid being murdered by Jack the Ripper, and having my mother called a witch by a priest. The second half of the experience, known as the London Tombs, involved navigating through a maze filled with all manner of horrors. We were made to squeeze through cramped spaces in pitch black, all whilst being pursued by live actors ready to jump out without a moment's notice. After escaping these tombs, with thankfully still clean underwear, we were ready for something a little more relaxed. Overall, however, the experience is definitely something I would recommend. After a quick look around the local market and a tube ride to the West End, we arrived at the Prince Edward Theatre, where we would watch a performance of Aladdin. This was definitely a highlight of the trip for me. Aladdin was full of great effects, music and humour, and was a brilliant end to the first day. After a good night's sleep, it was off to the Science Museum in Kensington. Thankfully, this was a relatively short bus ride away, so we arrived in good time. Entry to the museum was free, however a small donation was recommended, and certain activities inside cost, such as the big screen shows and simulators. The museum was well laid out, with 5 floors and things to do for all ages. We started on the top floor, which included a large exhibit on flight, containing anything from Spitfires and jet engines to helicopters and missiles. The floor below was filled with displays on computing, communications and more. Having an interest in computers for the majority of my life, it was particularly interesting for me to see where it all began, and how far we have come in a relatively short space of time. Moving on to the next floor, we were greeted with lunar landers and rockets as we explored exhibits on the great unknown. After spending a good portion of the day in the museum, it was now time to move on. I do believe we'll have to have our minds a little more open, and a greater appreciation for the work that has gone into things we might take for granted in day-to-day life. After a short walk up the road, we made a quick stop at Hyde Park. It was an experience in itself to see the vibrant colours of the autumn leaves, as we enjoyed one of the only quiet areas you might find in this part of London. Our next destination was the Imperial War Museum, which was a few stops away on the Underground. The exterior of the building itself was something to admire, with a flow of poppies pouring from the tower, commemorating the 100th anniversary of the end of the Great War. From the moment we entered the museum, we were greeted with a view of some of the many vehicles and weapons used in various wars throughout history. Much like the Science Museum, the building was split into different exhibits on each floor, with the first dedicated to World War I. After playing computer games set during the wars, it was somewhat surreal seeing tanks and guns I had only ever seen on a screen, right in front of me. I think it is sometimes easy to forget, but as we walked through the exhibit, we were reminded of the sheer brutality of the war, and the many men, women and children who lost their lives on all sides of the conflict. Over the next few hours, we made our way down Oxford Street for some window shopping, before enjoying a meal at Wagamama's. Overall, it was an enjoyable day, but I think it's safe to say we were all ready for bed when we finally returned to the hotel. The final day of our stay arrived, along with our last planned activity, and so we boarded a train for a short ride to the Olympia Convention Centre. For my birthday, we are attending Hyper Japan, a convention celebrating everything weird and wonderful in Japanese culture. Upon arrival, it was easy to be overwhelmed with the amount of stalls and displays. However, we quickly gravitated towards the stage, where traditional Japanese dancers were performing. After watching some great performances, we then attempted to cover as many stalls as we could, in some kind of logical order. There were displays including, but not limited to, replica weapons, soft toys, manga, anime, action figures, stationery, pottery, arts and crafts, travel, gaming, and of course, plenty of food. There were also two experiences we had booked before the event, ramen and sake. The ramen experience involved tasting 3 different types of broth from 3 different prefectures across Japan, and then picking your favourite to eat. It was definitely something unique, and I only wish I could have taken the recipes home with me. Next up was the sake experience. For those who don't know, sake is a type of fermented rice alcohol originating from Japan. During the experience, we were given 20 tokens and could then pick from over 100 different types of sake to try. Needless to say, it was quite enjoyable. Unfortunately, the convention was drawing to a close, and with it, my final day in London, so it's time to head back to the hotel to check out. Before I left London, however, we took a short journey up the Thames on a boat we had almost entirely to ourselves. The river was almost the perfect place to see some of London's most famous landmarks, wonderfully lit up in the night. After disembarking from the river cruise near Tower Bridge, we took a short walk to the tube station, where we would board the underground back to King's Cross. I can honestly say I had a brilliant weekend in London, having tried many things for the first time and enjoying myself along the way. I look forward to returning to many of the places we visited, as well as venturing to even more places in the future.